As we head into Thanksgiving week, I wanted to share something a little shorter and reflective, just a quiet pause in the midst of what is probably a busy week for you. Gratitude is everywhere this time of year in particular, but today I want to explore it not as just a trend or a list that you do at the end of the day, but as a way of being. I'll share a personal story from a season when gratitude felt especially difficult and what I discovered about its quiet strength. We'll talk about what happens in our minds, bodies, and spirits when we begin to cultivate a deeper kind of thankfulness, one that holds space for both joy and pain. So wherever this episode finds you, whether your heart is light or heavy, I hope it brings you presence, perspective, and maybe even a little peace. Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright, and your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. Welcome back to the Power to Flourish podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andrea Line. And I want to start by sharing a story that I'm not proud of, but I think it illustrates very well what I want to talk to you about today. So there was a long period of my life where I felt ready to be in a new season, a new place. I was sort of ready to move on. And for various reasons, I was not at that point yet. So it was sort of like I wanted to go from point A to point B and be at point B, but I was still in point A and wondering, when in the world am I going to get to point B? I don't know if you can relate to that feeling at all, but it can feel very frustrating. You can start to feel stuck. You can start to get discouraged. I definitely felt a lot of those things a lot of the time. And I just remember very, very clearly, there was a time I was in my kitchen. I was living in New England, in Massachusetts, where I lived actually for 15 years. And I grew up at the beach. I grew up in the South. I grew up with winters that I thought were cold, but I didn't really understand what was cold until I moved up north, and winters lasted 6, 7 months out of the year, or at least where I lived. So just imagine it's the middle of a very long, dark, cold winter in New England. This is many winters into my stay so far, and I was ready to be somewhere different. It wasn't just as simple as I don't want to be in this cold place, although that was a big part of it. There were a lot of things in my life that were not aligned. Important things that were not in alignment. And I knew they were not in alignment. And it was painful to not take action to just get into the place that I wanted to be. So that's sort of painting the scene and sort of a thumbnail sketch of it anyway. But I remember this one dark, very cold winter day, and I was in my kitchen just longing and praying, basically like, how much longer, how much longer will I need to persevere in this season? And as I've shared, I haven't shared all the details of my life yet in this podcast, but there have been plenty of seasons in my life where I have persevered. I know how to persevere. I can persevere. I can wait and I can persevere, but that doesn't always mean it's, easy or I'm happy about it. So in this moment, I was sort of wanting to know how much longer and how am I going to handle this, because I felt like I was getting to a breaking point. And even though I knew the importance of gratitude, like I knew it very well, it's not that I didn't understand the concept. It's not that I didn't understand how powerful it is. It's not that I didn't even understand. And when I say the power of it, I mean spiritually, but it's not that I didn't understand even the science behind it. Like I knew intellectually all of these things, but have you ever realized that you can know something in your head and then you reach a point in your life where the application of that knowing is very difficult? So that was sort of the season and the situation I was in. I knew it in my head, but I was having a really hard time applying it because I was frustrated and I was discouraged. So I knew this sort of like that small quiet voice inside said to me while I was in my kitchen that day, until you can really be thankful, like truly, genuinely thankful for what you can be thankful for and have gratitude for what this season is for you, you're not going to have the breakthrough that you're looking for. You're not going to be able to not just get to where I wanted to be, but internally have this breakthrough of like not feeling stuck, not feeling frustrated, right? I needed what I felt like I needed a breakthrough. And our breakthroughs often, I believe, happen inside, or another way to put it is in the spiritual realm where you can't see the breakthrough, but you know it's happened before it manifests in the outside world. At least that has been my experience. So I knew I needed to get to that place. And I began in that season being committed, like, just focused and committed to practicing and knowing, to a place of being able to embody and not just know in my head, embody this concept of gratitude, thankfulness, appreciation, even in the seasons that are really, really hard. And I'm happy to say that long season, that actually was quite longer, much longer than I wanted it to be, did help me build this muscle inside, emotionally, spiritually. It's not to say that I can never get that way again or that I never can feel stuck, because of course I am a human being. And so just like any of us, I can revert and sort of forget what to do. But what I would say is that I had the opportunity to practice to such an extent that it became almost second nature. And that season taught me that gratitude doesn't always start with the feeling. It usually doesn't start with the feeling. I did not feel grateful necessarily. Oftentimes, it begins with the choice. It's that sacred pause. It is that intention behind what it is we want, how we want to live, how we want to be in the world. It is just as simple as a quiet remembering, even when we don't feel like it, or especially when we don't feel like it. So I want to talk to you really quickly today and just remind you of what gratitude actually does and what it's not. So first of all, and I want to say this 100 times over, so please hear me. Gratitude is not toxic positivity. As a positive psychologist, as someone who has studied the science, taught this for years, I feel like I always have to remind people that even though we are discussing behaviors, traits, things that we know build up our resilience, build up our capacity to handle hard things, build up our emotional well-being, our mental health, these are all facts. But it is different than suppressing, avoiding, denying hard things. So that is not what I'm talking about. This is not about ignoring the hard things. This is not about pretending everything is fine if it's not. Real gratitude doesn't bypass the reality. I'll say that again. Real gratitude doesn't bypass reality. It honors it. It says, this is hard, and there is still something good, and there is still something beautiful, and there is still something in your life, even in the midst of this hard thing, that you can be grateful for. That's what it does. That is the power of it. It returns our own agency back to ourselves, to reorient ourselves from just looking at all the bad stuff and being sort of mired in it, which I definitely was in that season of my life, to, oh, let's look over here. Let's look at the possibility. Let's look not just at the silver lining, but let's look at the real goodness that is happening. Both things can be true. Both things are true. Gratitude reshapes the brain and the nervous system. It is widely known now, after many years now of researchers looking at this idea, after researchers studying gratitude, that something as simple as gratitude writing, and I can talk a little bit more about, some specific interventions, ones I have given out to students and clients over the years, but something as simple as writing down what you're grateful for, whether that's just for yourself or writing it and sending it to the person, reduces stress and negative emotion. And the neuroscience of gratitude is really around that. It activates the reward and connection centers in our brain. And Harvard Health studies show that gratitude not only increases our emotional resilience, but it actually improves sleep and, get this, even longevity. Is that not amazing? So if that doesn't convince you that gratitude actually is a helpful thing, it's not just a feel-good emotion, and it's not just like some trendy thing that people are trying to sell you on. It's very powerful. I want to distinguish really quickly because it's a Thanksgiving season here in America. And so we talk about thankfulness, right? We talk about appreciation. We talk about gratitude. And I just want to all of those words sort of dance around some similar things, but let's just take it apart for just a second. So thankfulness, I like to think of thankfulness as it's like that spontaneous reaction to something good happening. So something has happened, something good has happened, and we feel thankful for it, right? It's typically momentary. Not always, but it's usually outward facing. Like we are thankful to someone. We thank someone for XYZ, right? Thank you for the gift. Thank you for holding the door for me. It doesn't always have to be outward facing, but it often is. You usually feel thankful for something, right? A gesture, a circumstance, or an outcome. So that is thankfulness. Appreciation is a little more reflective and evaluative. So it's usually tied to noticing the value or beauty in something. Appreciation is often connected to mindfulness or the savoring of an experience, right? So it can be independent of a specific circumstance, meaning you could appreciate beauty. I could appreciate, say, a beautiful rose in my garden, even when I am having a hard day and I'm really sad about something. Like appreciation is very independent of the circumstance. It's more about attunement. So it's when we pause, we're noticing the beauty, the meaning, or the goodness that's already present. It's often in quiet, sort of ordinary moments, but not always. Of course, you can appreciate at any time, but this is sort of like that qualitative feeling of appreciation. That makes sense. And gratitude, I like to think of as a deeper orientation or posture. It's a way of being that acknowledges goodness, even when, and it often does, even when it coexists with pain. And that is the power move, right? That is why this is so powerful. It's very deep. This is why I have a little bit of a reaction to how we've taken the gratitude research and turned it into something, not that it's shallow necessarily, because I do think if you're not in the practice or the orientation of gratitude in your life, then having a practice like writing down 5 things you're grateful for at the end of the day, that is definitely a positive psychology intervention that works. We know that works. It works for people who are depressed. It works for people who are not depressed. So those are all good things. But I guess maybe because in the US, with all things, we like to monetize things. So now we have all the gratitude journals and we have, gratitude this, gratitude that. Sometimes I feel like we can water down the concept. So I don't want to do that here. This is a very deep, powerful orientation. It has both emotional and moral dimensions. So gratitude, it connects us to others. It connects us to God. It connects us to life itself. And it can be cultivated even when there's no immediate reason to feel thankful. It can be cultivated. This is, again, the power of gratitude. Of these three, they're all important: thankfulness, appreciation, gratitude. Like I said, they sort of can all like dance together. But I believe, depending on how you're defining this, gratitude in this definition of it makes it one of the most transformational of the three. And again, not to downplay appreciation or thankfulness, because all of these things are important. But it's a way, when I think of gratitude, it's a way of being that says, even here, even now, I choose to remember that goodness still exists. It is not always a reaction. And like I said, it's usually a choice. It's a reorientation. If you think of it in this certain way, it's like it's a kind of spiritual discipline, actually. We don't always call it that in modern language, but I really do think it is a sacred spiritual discipline, whether you think of yourself as spiritual or religious or not. So if you kind of think of it like on a spectrum where thankfulness is like this spark, right? It's like something happens, we're thankful. Appreciation like comes up in the stillness, and gratitude is like the soil from which everything else can grow. It's more enduring. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but that's sort of how I think about it. The other piece I want to talk about is being thankful, expressing thankfulness, gratitude and appreciation for what is not yet seen. Now, this is what I was being challenged to in this season. And I've been challenged in many seasons of my life to practice this. And when you have the opportunity to practice it, as hard as it can be, it's such a builder of your inside. It's like it builds your spiritual muscles, because it's easy to be thankful for what we see, right? It's really easy to be thankful for what we get in the natural. We see it. We, hopefully have practiced thankfulness so we can be thankful. But what happens when we do not see it? It's not happening. Like when I was at point A and I wanted to be point B and I did not see any signs of point B happening. It's really hard in that situation, especially when it's very prolonged, to be thankful for what has yet to be seen, for what has yet to come true. That, again, is a spiritual posture. It is this kind of like really sacred trust. We might call it faith. And if you come from a Christian viewpoint, like there's that verse in Hebrews, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so if we believe that, if we believe, and I won't even get into all the science and the quantum physics behind some of this. I'm just talking about more the spiritual right now. But if we believe that we have a part to play, that we co-create with God, or however you think about this for yourself, we co-create. And so our choice to be grateful, our choice to give thanks, our choice to appreciate something that we don't see yet actually has the power to change things, to bring things into existence that aren't yet seen. This is what I believe anyway. And this is what I've experienced. And maybe you have too. But it is hard to do, right? It's hard to practice this. But I want to encourage and just remind you that part of what I believe gratitude is not just for what we see right now, although that is huge. Gratitude for where we are right now, it's so important. It's so powerful. But when we can be grateful and express thankfulness, truly, genuinely, not like forcing it, but true trust that we say, I I really believe that I will get to, in my example, I will get to point B. I will one day be in this point B that I am envisioning for myself. I will one day be living that. I will one day have that fill in the blank, whatever it is that you are hoping for, needing, whatever. When we can express the gratitude, it creates this kind of alignment. It opens our hearts. And here's again the neuroscience behind it. When we get into that flow of gratitude, it literally opens our minds. I'm sure you can even feel this when we are feeling positive and when we're grateful and thankful. It leads us to more positivity. That's what happens. I'm talking about the psychology of it. There's this upward spiral that happens. And so when that happens emotionally, then cognitively, what begins to happen is that our minds are literally open to come up with creative solutions, see creative, you know, solutions to problems, opportunities, open to seeing, oh, here's this person that I hadn't thought about who's come into my life that might be able to help me with XYZ. It literally rewires and changes the way our minds and our brains are working. The reverse of that is when we get mired in negativity, discouragement, frustration, which I totally was in. When we get mired in that place, cognitively what happens, it's like tunnel vision. It's literally like, I have my hands up, I'm sort of trying to depict this, even though I'm on a podcast, so that is silly. But my hands are above my head. It's like horses that have the little blinders over their eyes. So that's what it feels like. It's like the blinders start coming in. It's literally narrowing our focus. This is part of, scientists believe, so sort of part of the evolutionary process of getting us focused for our survival. We have to narrow our focus in certain situations in order to survive. But that's not really helpful in modern day life most of the time. We want to keep ourselves open. We want to be able to think clearly and come up with creative solutions for, whatever the situation we're in. So that's sort of the power and the science behind this. Like I said, I like to nerd out on the science, but sort of blending the science and the spirituality here. So if you're walking through a season of waiting right now, this might be the most powerful kind of gratitude you can practice, right? It's being thankful for what you haven't yet seen, believing it's coming, or believing even if the specific thing doesn't come, you're believing for a good outcome, if that's maybe a more accurate way to put it. So that's just another kind of gratitude. It's one that's not about what you have, but it's about what you hope for. And I want to be clear. Some of you listening may be like, that sounds like wishful thinking. You, depending on where you are and depending on your experiences in life and depending on I can relate to this, some discouragement and hard things that happen in life, it can look like wishful thinking. And I'm just going to offer that it's actually faith. It is what faith looks like. And I do believe that is a substance. It's like something we can hold onto, and it positions us to receive. Like I said, it positions ourselves for peace, clarity, and provision. And so it may be true that the specific of what you think you want doesn't necessarily come true, but because gratitude is this form of trust, it's like a rope that anchors us to something good in the future. We trust that whatever hardship we're in right now, we will be pulled out of it. That is the power of it. So as we close today, I want to leave you with a question. Something you might carry with you into this week or into this season as we go into Thanksgiving and then the holiday season in December. Everything starts to ramp up. Where in your life does gratitude feel hard right now? Maybe it's a relationship that feels a little strained, or maybe a lot strained, or maybe it's a dream that just hasn't come together the way you hoped. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you're just tired and it's hard. You maybe just feel like you don't even have the energy. to feel grateful right now. It's real. It's real. And again, I don't want this to be construed as something that I would call, sort of more toxic positivity. You can't force this has to be genuine, and you can't force it. It is a choice, but it's a choice to turn rather than to suppress. We don't need to suppress the hard things. We don't need to suppress the feelings. You can be as honest about how painful it is. And in the same breath, I have another memory in my head of another really hard time that I was going through when my husband and I were really wanting to have children, and it just wasn't happening. And if any of you have been through that, you know how painful that is. But I remember crying from the deepest parts of myself, and crying and being in so much pain of like, why? And at the same exact time, in my tears streaming through down my face, choosing and saying, I believe there is a beautiful story that is being written, and I have hope, and I have gratitude for the life I have, and I have gratitude for the story that my life is, even the parts of my story that I don't understand and the parts of my story that have yet to be written. I have gratitude, and I'm thankful for this life that I have. That was the posture I chose to have. That is the posture that I am suggesting you practice. Again, not suppressing and avoiding the negative, but it's opening to beauty. It's opening to meaning. It's opening to the possibility that something good might still come from this place. That kind of gratitude doesn't rush you. It doesn't minimize what's going on, but it does make space for something sacred to move through you. So if you're struggling with this, and even if you're not, even if you're just like, you know what, I'm doing okay, but I want to deepen this. I want to stretch myself. I want to grow this muscle within me. I encourage you this week to maybe just set a little reminder on your phone every day this week. Have a moment, maybe it's random, where you just pause and you name for yourself one beautiful or grounding thing. Thank you even for this. You can just like whisper that to yourself. Thank you even for this. And just let it settle in your body. Let it feel what it feels like, because this is embodied, right? This is not, it can't just be mental. If it's just mental, I mean, you can start there, but we've got to get it inside of you. And some of that just takes practice over and over and over again. Certainly did for me. But part of it is just pausing and letting it settle deep within you. It's a doorway, right? This is just another practice, a doorway back to presence and peace. So if this episode gave you something to rest in or reflect on, I'd love for you to share it with someone who you think might need it, especially this week or in this season. And if you'd like to stay connected beyond this podcast, I wanted to remind you, I send out something called the Sanctuary Letters. They're like my little love notes to the women in my community. I may have some men in there too, but I'm mostly writing to you women. And they're part inspiration, part reflection, and always written with the intention to bring a little bit more peace, perspective, and beauty into your week. So you can sign up at the link in the show notes. I would love to welcome you there. And another fun thing I have not shared yet on the podcast, but there's this wonderful little link in the show notes where you can send me a text message. You can send me a question. You can send me your thoughts on this podcast so far. I'm just getting started. So I would love to know everything from, what's your ideal length of a podcast? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 45 minutes? Is it somewhere in between? What are some of the topics that you'd love to hear me speak on? Or just say hi. You can text me, click on the link in the show notes. It's so fun. I will read those, and it's so encouraging, especially for someone just sitting behind the mic, speaking into it, into what can feel like a void. It is always so nice to hear from any of you by email or text. So with that, I'm wishing you a Thanksgiving week full of meaning, presence, and beauty, wherever that finds you. And until next time, remember, keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.